Hey everybody, WWJD here of Pacific Storm Allies Gamers, bringing you another PSA STA SC, or Pacific Storm Allies Sink Them All Strat Chat. This is the series where I talk about different strategies you might use in the campaign of Pacific Storm Allies. Now I'm making a little bit of change to this series. Instead of having just a blank screen or whatever in the background, I'm actually just going to put up a little footage of a mission that I'll be playing, and maybe you guys can guess what it is, but at the end of each PSA STA SC video, I'll make sure to go and tell you which mission I was playing, just kind of like a little thing in the background so you guys aren't just staring at a blank screen. And where I need to actually go onto the campaign level, or the strategic level, to actually show something, I'll make a cutscene there. But since most of it's just audio anyway, I figure I can just put in a little bit of recording for some mission I've played. Well, anyway, let's go and get started with the actual video. We talked about in the last video, we talked about defending a base. Well, in this video, we're going to talk about how to attack a base. It's only logical to, once you know how to defend, to make sure you know how to attack. Well, you might be saying, well, WWJD, I know how to attack. You just launch all your units you select all the units you want, you right-click on the base you want to go, hit spacebar or whatever to start the game up, and then you attack, right? You are partially correct, if that is what you said. But you need to know the strategy behind it, because this game is extremely strategic. So you have some things you need to take into account. The basics that you need to take into account are how much fuel your units have when you reach there. That's very important because if you don't have any fuel, you can't move and you're just sitting ducks at the enemy base. How much ammunition do you have? If you don't have enough ammunition, you can't attack, and you need to be able to attack. Let's see, how about aerial superiority? That's a big one. I mean, that's a huge one. If you can have aerial superiority, then you automatically have an advantage. So if you are making the attack, what you can actually do is you have a couple of options. You can either have carriers, and those personally I use carriers in most of my attacks. Most of my attacks usually have carriers unless I know that the enemy's base is extremely weak. Another option that you have is you literally can actually launch up aerial aircraft from another base and have them rendezvous at the enemy base at the same time you're attacking it. This means that all the units get to go into the battle planner, or into the tactical level of the game. So you can launch up a group of heavy bombers, have them meet at the same time your fleet is reaching the base. That way, both the heavy bomber group and your fleet are both attacking. That gives you even more aircraft. Now, you have to be careful to make sure that your aircraft can return to the base they took off from, because they will need to have enough fuel for that. You don't want to send up a large number of bombers, use them, and not be able to have them return to base. So be careful of how much fuel you're using during the actual attack. That's one way to do. That's aerial superiority, and it's a huge, huge part of the game. All right. So again, next you'll have naval. All right. So you have your navy. You want to have a really good balanced fleet, especially in the large battles. You want to be able to have your destroyers protecting your heavy units. You want to have light cruisers protecting your heavy units. You want to make sure that your carriers are out of range of the enemy guns, so that they can be continually launching aircraft and reloading aircraft. You want to use your battleships as long-range shelling weapons. You want to have them sitting back, being protected by cruisers and destroyers, while launching out and shelling the enemy with their heavy main guns. So go ahead and make sure that you're balanced with this. Another aspect of the Navy is the submarines. Submarines are extremely deadly to an enemy fleet if they don't have sonar. If they do have sonar, then you want to be careful because they can use depth charges on their destroyers. However, if they do not have sonar, you can really do a lot of damage to an enemy fleet just by using several submarines. And really, they're not that expensive to make, and they don't take a long time to build. So I like to use submarines when I can. They are really effective in taking naval superiority, because these, if you can get them close to the enemy's battleships and cruisers, and even their carriers, they can do a lot of damage, because those torpedoes are extremely deadly. Another thing that can make them really, really deadly is the guided torpedoes. If you can get a guided torpedo and you launch a salvo of guided torpedoes, that's going to be devastating to an enemy. Again, you'll have to make sure though that you have enough ammunition. Once your submarine fires their torpedoes, it takes them a long time to reload. But still, that long time is still, I mean, it's a trade-off. It's a long time to reload, but it's a really huge payoff in the end if you can get a good number of torpedoes into the enemy ship. Another aspect of the attack is how many ground forces do you have? How many soldiers do you have, and how much ground force does the enemy have? If the enemy there are several, I'm sorry, let's see, how's that going to work? How am I going to describe this? It's it's a lot of mathematical calculations. Several calculations go into the numbers. How many do you have versus how many the enemy has? The experience, how much experience do your units have in comparison to the enemy experience? But also, you can actually build defensive structures, and defensive structures also give a bonus to defending units. And all of this is mathematically taken care of. You'll also notice there's a slight bug in the coding, which makes it so that Britain can't actually land troops. However, you can, if you're playing as Britain and you can't land troops. That's unfortunate. It's in there. I'm gonna have to look into working out that bug later on, but that's actually in the EXE, so that's gonna be that's gonna be a huge pain to fix. But anyway, for the time being, you really can't as Britain. So what I would recommend you do is you maybe just shell the base with your troops, with your Navy and Air Force, and decrease the number of troops the enemy has, but then go back, once you've shelled the base enough to where you're pleased, go ahead and exit out and just go ahead and hit that auto battle, and that'll take care of it. Alright, so let's see, we've discussed a good number of things. Another thing you want to be wary of is in the attack is, can you defend the base once you have it captured? If you capture the base, but then you have nothing to keep it, well, that's just wasted resources. I mean, you, yes, have damaged the enemy, but I mean, if you capture a base, you've used ammunition, you've used fuel, and time. But if you lose it, then you're not really gaining anything. You've just lost the geographical position, and you've pretty much just lost all that you've spent into the capturing of it. Certain bases have several different advantages, one being geographical. Like, I like to have Guam, that's in the middle of the Pacific. And from Guam, I can launch air raids, I can launch naval raids, I can keep a good eye out on where the enemy is, I can get that intel. However, its resource input is really not that high. Some bases have terrible geographic positions. A good example of those might be the homeland bases, depending on which nation you're playing as, especially the United States. They got a lot of income and resources, but they're really out of position to really be used geographically. But their income is huge. And so you want to balance, you want to figure out what is good income and what has good geographical position. And if you can find a base that has good income and good geographical position, then go for it. Go ahead and take it down. Those are just some strategies that you might think of, that you might use. Just an overview of attacking bases in Pacific Storm Allies. Go ahead and experiment. It really is a lot of experimenting, a lot of learning from trial and error. However, hopefully these videos give you something to think about in strategies. And so, I want to thank you guys for watching. I'll see you here, there, or in the air. Oh, but wait a minute, I've almost forgot. The mission! The mission, if you guys haven't guessed it, it is the end of the War Genius, being played as United States. Thanks, guys. I'll see you here, there, or in the air.